Microsoft continues to make efforts to get their acquisition of Activision Blizzard to go through to extreme measures, saying that they would allow Call of Duty to be on PS Plus, and even making commitments to the FTC about a decade-long commitment with respect to Call of Duty. I've got two different things to break down for you. Number one, why are they willing to put it on PlayStation Plus? What does that mean? I will update this video if Sony responds. Like, we'll do another follow-up video. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I wanted to record this now, depending on the timeline. So if you're coming to this video after Sony responded, I'll have a follow-up video. There's also just an ongoing development with the FTC. Bloomberg's got some insight into that. So we're going to be looking at two different things here. This is Insider Gaming, all right? And this was posted on the 12th, the day before I decided to record this. We're sort of waiting to see, as the story developed, what would be able to be added to it. So I do want to include that FTC. If you're unaware, Microsoft has been continuing to really push hard the idea that they're committing to this deal in such a strong way. They said they offered Nintendo a 10-year deal on Call of Duty. They offered it to Steam, and then they were willing to offer it to Sony. Many people looked at that and said that's not really the deal with the acquisition. The focus on Call of Duty is a bit of a PR move, like getting the public to focus on Call of Duty. The FTC and the UK and the EU are focusing on the size of the deal and what it could be. The FTC cited the EU's document, and then the EU claimed they didn't say that, but they actually did. Like, the actual verbiage wasn't that Microsoft made promises, but that they made assurances there was no financial incentive to remove ZeniMax properties from other, rival consoles, and then they did it. So now we're looking at that logic being applied to more than just Call of Duty. The idea being like, well, if you're going to tell us you don't have a financial incentive to remove Blizzard Activision stuff, what if you do it again? And I think they just keep talking about Call of Duty because they want that to be the focus. So here is the article. Microsoft willing to let Sony sell Call of Duty as part of PlayStation Plus. Now, I can predict Sony's response here would be, that's not that helpful, okay? Or at the very least, we don't want to do it day and date, because Sony's strategy is to not put big titles on their subscription day and date because they have an ecosystem and a consumer base that loves to buy things. Like, they have 48% of the Call of Duty consumer base. Like, whenever they sell a Call of Duty to the market, 48% of the purchasers are on Sony. So they're not going to want to put it on PlayStation Plus, at least not right away. I mean, maybe later, sure. But this is a slight answer to one of Sony's sort of concerns was, if Microsoft restricts where Call of Duty can go, that's restricting the subscription market and making it hard for us to compete. So this is a move towards Sony, one of their specific criticisms from Microsoft. Here's what it says. As Microsoft continues to fight for the right to move forward with this acquisition of Activision Blizzard, more details are coming out regarding the offers made to rival companies. According to a report from Bloomberg on Monday, Microsoft made an offer to Sony that includes the right to sell Call of Duty as part of its PlayStation Plus service. Recently, it was publicly announced that Microsoft offered Sony a 10-year deal that would see PlayStation platform continue to have Call of Duty games available. Now, in addition to the general 10-year deal, Bloomberg says that the deal includes the ability for Sony to sell the game in PlayStation Plus via sources who spoke on the condition on anonymity. So people are staying anonymous. They're like, listen, I don't want anybody to know that I'm saying this, but they're offering to Sony, hey, you can throw this on PS Plus. We're removing that part of the argument. Sony would remain competitive in the subscription field. I know Sony wouldn't want to do this day and date, but it is nice to be able to put a title this large on PlayStation Plus like a year later. That's just a really great value add for your consumer base. Recently, Sony made major changes to its PlayStation Plus subscriptions. The company merged the traditional PlayStation Plus with PlayStation Now, introducing tiers to the service that gave players access to different features such as classic and more current games. Adding Call of Duty would likely give many players a new reason to make the plunge and sign up for a service that doesn't often include recently released titles. PlayStation Plus usually focuses on games that have been out for quite some time, which is why this offer is nice, and it does answer one of PlayStation's concerns, but it wouldn't have anything to do with launch dates of Call of Duty, which could be their pushback. If you're putting it on your subscription service launch date, and we don't want to, because our ecosystem is one where we sell games, not throw them on a subscription service day and date, different business strategies could be at odds here with how winsome this offer is. In addition to the 10-year deal offered to Sony, Microsoft and Nintendo actually struck a 10-year deal to bring the series to the Nintendo Switch hardware. That deal hasn't been struck because the acquisition hasn't gone through. So you can't really strike a deal with products you don't own yet. I don't appreciate the verbiage there. There's no deal that's been struck. You can't really, it's a commitment. According to the public dialogue from Microsoft, it's a commitment. It's not an actual signed deal because you don't own the property yet. It might not ever happen. Throughout the acquisition review process, Microsoft has stated that it wouldn't prevent the popular first-person shooter franchise from appearing on other platforms. That said, others like Sony and the FTC aren't fully buying what Microsoft appears to be selling to everyone. Well, this is where the FTC cited the EU's conclusion. The EU concluded with ZeniMax there was no financial incentive, and then seemingly that financial incentive was there because as soon as they owned all the Bethesda stuff, they're like, these are our properties. Nobody's saying Microsoft lied. The FTC didn't even say that. They were simply saying if you're using the same argumentation again, that there's no financial incentive, you seemingly found one very quickly with ZeniMax. Are you going to do the same thing with Activision Blizzard? It says, do you think Sony should accept Microsoft's offer and have Call of Duty sold on PlayStation Plus? I don't think so for day and date. It's a great ad later, but it's very antithetical to Sony's business model of selling big name premium titles for a premium price, and then things later on get kicked to PlayStation Plus, as well as game trials, which fosters an ecosystem of purchase. When you're at the PlayStation Premium, you could try Horizon Forbidden West for like 5 hours. That's fostering an ecosystem of purchase. You really get the player invested. They really get that value. They're confident in their purchase. Nobody's buying a game under that trial system and making a mistake and feeling like they need a refund, which with the recent rise of really bad game launches like Gotham Knights, Plague Tale Requiem, and even Callisto Protocol with its performance issues at launch, many people are looking to, hey, I'd love to be able to try games or refund them when they're bad. Now, there's more about the FTC coming from Dinah Bass, tweeting about this. The article is behind, like, you got to make an account. I don't ever like doing that, so I can't read the entire Bloomberg article, but she pulls out some juicy bits about what is going on with the FTC and Call of Duty. Microsoft President Brad Smith says that the company offered the FTC that it would sign a legally binding consent decree saying it would make Call of Duty available to rivals for a decade. It didn't help. Story to come. So then she outlines it in this story. So Microsoft committing to Sony, hey, you can have it for 10 years. Hey, you can put it on PS Plus. Hey, Nintendo can have 10 years. And then they're willing to go to the FTC and sign a decree being like, it'll be everywhere for at least a decade. Now, many people might be saying, what happens in a decade? I don't know, the next batch of consoles, maybe they would want to renegotiate at that point because it's their property, get a better royalty share from all these platforms. I'm on record as saying that I believe Microsoft when they say they have a very strong vested interest in keeping Call of Duty everywhere. I think they're telling the truth. It really comes down to what about everything else? And what about suddenly having that power over the market? That's the real question. The third largest company in the world suddenly owning a significant portion of the gaming market. Call of Duty is feeling more and more like a red herring in the discussion. Here's a quote from Smith expressing disappointment. I'm disappointed that the FTC didn't give us the opportunity to even sit down with the staff, to even talk about our proposal, to even see if there was a solution there, Smith said at Microsoft's annual shareholder meeting. Listen, I applaud the FTC. Don't let Microsoft dictate the goalposts here. If it's not about Call of Duty, don't let them make it about Call of Duty. And that's what the FTC is doing. Like, listen, you can come to the table and promise us that you'll have this game on every console for the next 10 years. That's not the concern. It's one of the concerns, but it's not the primary concern here. The concern is the power that you would have in the aftermath. Call of Duty is just a distraction at this point. It's got the public and the press just gobbling up. Microsoft's promising this and Microsoft's promising that. Yeah, and guess what? The FTC is not really swayed. Doesn't seem like the EU and the UK are all that swayed either. Like, okay, great. You're going to do that with Call of Duty. You're buying a whole lot more than Call of Duty. And that market disruption is worrisome. It could be very bad. So here it says, she says, we've updated the story with some info from a source on when Microsoft started engaging with the FTC on possible remedies it was willing to commit. Again, it got them nowhere. but just for timeline's sake. So they're not getting where they want with the FTC, and I think the main mistake that Microsoft's making is they're focusing on Call of Duty, and while that's working for gaming press, the general public, and a good PR move, it's not going to convince a regulator who's looking at more than just one title. They're looking at the scope of the purchase. The size of this purchase is incredibly daunting comparatively. It's the biggest gaming acquisition in history from the third largest company in the world. As always, we will update and do another video if Sony responds. This video might not even get uploaded. I'm recording it thinking that if Sony responds, we'll have to do a whole new video, and this video won't be relevant. So if you got to see this video, it's because Sony hasn't responded yet. As always, if you like these vids, hit subscribe and the bell button. Check out my live streams I do every day on this channel, and I'll see you in the next video.